Welcome to the Floyd Memorial Library podcast, where we sit down with the people who give shape, texture, and voice to life on the North Fork of Long Island. Some are rooted here by generations, others arrived by chance or choice, but all carry with them a piece of the story. We talk about what's changing, what's worth holding on to, and the currents of history, both quiet and loud, that run through this place. I'm your host, Christopher Bianchi, and for episode 128, we sit down with Laura Klahre, a scientist, sustainable farmer, and passionate pollinator advocate. Though she began her career as an oceanographer, Laura hasn't left marine science behind. Instead, she's brought that same spirit of inquiry and environmental stewardship to the land. At Blossom Meadow Farm on the North Fork of Long Island, she's built a model for sustainable agriculture centered on native pollinators like mason bees and promotes awareness of often overlooked allies like the flower fly, an efficient unsung pollinator, helping to fill the gap left by declining bee populations. Whether she's making award-winning pectin-free jams or pushing for policy to protect native ecosystems, Laura is helping to shape a future where farming and science work hand in hand. So I hope you enjoy episode 128 with Laura Klahre. This episode was recorded May 1st, 2025. Thank you so much for coming on to the Floyd Memorial Library podcast today. I'm looking forward to talking to you today.
Thanks so much, Chris. It's great being here.
Thank you. And so could you just give us a little introduction about yourself?
Just a little bit about me. My name is Laura Klahre. My farm is Blossom Meadow Farm. Started in 2009, and we have an organic farm in Southold, and then a storefront that I share with the winery Coffee Pot Cellars in Cutchogue. So just a, nice small farm, and we make thousands of jars of jam a year to show the fruits of the labor of all these great pollinators that are pollinating all the fruit. Mm-hmm. And, really just having a good time. Blossom Meadow Farm is a farm lab, as I see it. And so I've really been able to study native pollinators and thinking about how to move forward in this pretty much crisis that we're having in pollination. Right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people aren't talking about it, but there is a pollination crisis worldwide, actually.
Mm-hmm. And even when you first started, were you using honeybees at that point? Or because I know you've been raising more awareness about mason bees and their role in pollination.
Definitely. Yeah. So my background is actually as a marine biologist, and so I received my graduate degree at Stony Brook University, and then I was an oceanographer for the feds, and then a marine biologist for Peconic Estuary program here on Long Island, and then evolved onto land, I guess you could say, when I took the position of heading up the terrestrial programs for the Nature Conservancy. And it's really there that I started getting interested in native bees. And, I guess everybody starts off with honeybees. In the early 2000s, no one really gave native pollinators even a second look, right? It was all about honeybees. And so I was running 100 hives a year, harvesting about 5,000 or 6,000 pounds of honey each year. But then the science really started coming out. People are a little shocked that here I was so involved with honeybees, and I was really known for honey on the North Fork. And then they're shocked that now I got rid of all my honeybees. But the thing is, all right, have you ever been to the grocery store really the farmer's market? Yeah. Or a farm stand where you see an apple or a pear or a pepper or a strawberry that's cat-faced, right? Like smushed. Mm-hmm. So misshapen fruit, right? You know why that fruit is misshapen? It's pretty wild. It's because that side of the flower was not pollinated. It's really wild, right?
Yeah.
So bees are declining worldwide. Honeybees are horrible pollinators. They're good pollen collectors because they carry pollen in pollen baskets on their legs, but not good pollinators because it doesn't fall off of them easily, right? So there was even a paper, Kane and Tepedino from 2007. They calculated that 40 honeybee hives in the wildlands, June, July, and August, take out the equivalent food that would feed 4 million native bees, right? Wow. So honeybees are efficient pollen collectors, but not pollinators because it doesn't fall off them easily. You get misshapen fruit when that side of the flower wasn't pollinated. Native bees and native pollinators pollinate 2 to 3 times better. So here, our organic farm is only 2 acres. And so if I'm going to maximize the harvest I get from our strawberries, blueberries, red raspberries, black raspberries, elderberries, beach plums, then I need to have the best pollinator possible, right? So mason bees, right? They are in the megachilid family of bees. And so what they do is they belly flop onto the flower, grind the pollen in. And then by doing that, they look like flying Cheetos in the air, actually, because they have so much pollen on them. So by grinding that pollen in, you get heavier, more well-rounded fruit and then a higher yield per acre on your farm.
Wow.
It's amazing, right?
That's amazing.
So pollen and nectar, it's a finite resource. So you should want to feed the pollinators that are going to give you the best yield on your farm. Now I get it, why people want to keep honeybees, because honeybees make honey, right? So bumblebees make honey too, but not enough for us to harvest, right? Honeybees make honey because they overwinter in their hive and they need something that is low in water to eat while they're clustering up. Mm-hmm. But ecologically, honeybees do not make sense. And I am a strong supporter of banning honeybee hives on all parkland, open space, and conservation easements. Those parcels were protected in order to protect nature. Mm-hmm. Honeybees are invasive non-natives. They originated in Asia, then migrated to Europe, and then came over to the United States. Because they co-evolved with the plants that are from other countries, they preferentially pollinate those plants, so increase the seed set of invasive plants. And like I said, they communicate so well through dance that they can outstrip an area of pollen and nectar before the native bees can take advantage. For instance, we were talking about this a little earlier, bumblebees that are in close proximity to a honeybee hive, the bumblebees are actually smaller in size and produce fewer bee babies. The reason why is because the honeybees have taken away all the food, right? So bumblebees, who doesn't like a bumblebee, right?
Yeah.
And they pollinate so well. So.
Yeah. So with your farm, do you mostly use mason bees?
Yeah. Well, so we, once we read all the science about how bad honeybees are and wanting to maximize our yield from the farm, we got rid of all of our honeybee hives. And now I focus on mason bees out of one of the species. So mason bees, we're the only commercial producer of mason bees in the Northeast. And there have been over 750 bee ranchers that have started keeping mason bees through us. And, we can't protect all of Long Island with parkland. But what I found is people get emotionally attached to their honeybees, and then they want to plant more things to feed the bees. And then by doing that, they're now helping other creatures, right? So they're restoring their backyard and their front yards, all because they love a mason bee. I find the same thing happens with people that love monarch butterflies.
Yes.
Right? They start planting pollinator plants and milkweed specifically for the butterflies, but it helps so many other creatures as well. Mason bees are pretty cool because they only live for 6 weeks as a flying adult bee.
My God. Wow.
Yeah, is that so crazy?
Wow.
And they're solitary. They live in hollow plant stems, beetle tunnels of a dead tree, even a snail shell, anything that's the right size hole for them, which is basically the width of a pencil. The bee cottages that I've come up with a local carpenter, they're painted blue because mason bees see blue really well. And they have an extended roof overhang that then protects the reeds. And then the reeds themselves are 6 inches long because then you get the best male-female sex ratio. Mason bees are solitary. They'll live next door to another mason bee, but they don't talk. So it's kind of like living in an apartment building, right? Mm-hmm. You know you have a neighbor, but you just stare directly at your door and that's it. So the mason bees, since they're solitary, they have nothing to protect. So the same female that's collecting food is the same one laying an egg. So her body is really important to her. So she's really gentle, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas with honeybees, the queen is in the hive laying up to 5,000 eggs a day. The female worker, right, is the one that's going back and forth collecting nectar and pollen. And so with the honeybees, female workers might sting you and their butt falls out and then they die, right, with the honeybees. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't matter because the queen is still in the hive laying in the eggs. Back to the mason bees, since the same female is collecting food as the same one laying an egg, her body is so unbelievably important to her that she's the most gentle creature, right? Mm-hmm. And let me think. Oh, yeah. Oh, and I actually did get a female mason bee to sting me because people have always asked. I took one, I put it into my fist, and I squished her a little bit, and I shook her. Still nothing. Put a little bit more pressure. She finally stung me. But it felt like a mosquito bite because she hasn't evolved to have a strong stinger, right? I always see people as bees. So since you're a male, you actually don't sting. All male bees are built for procreation. Of all bee species, it's only female bees that sting. But like I said, honeybees have evolved to have a stronger stinger because the queen is in the hive laying eggs, so the genes are still moving on into the generations. Yeah. With the mason bees, right now, they are fully active. And mason bees, just like their name assumes, mason, they collect mud to plug up where they laid their baby, right? So they go on multiple collection trips of nectar and pollen. The pollen is the protein source. Nectar is the carbohydrate source. And then they lay an egg on it. And then they go, and it's not really mud. It's like damp dirt. And they collect damp dirt and then plug up where they laid their baby. And then they sleep in that tunnel overnight. The next day, do the same thing. And you can always tell when it's a mason bee that's lived in a tunnel because the mud is chunky. Mm-hmm. If it's a solitary wasp, you can tell when it's a solitary wasp because the mud is actually smooth. It's kind of like when somebody's building a sidewalk, right? Mm-hmm. How they shake the concrete for the milk to come to the top so it's nice and smooth. So the wasps sonicate the mud to make it smooth. Is that so fascinating?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So the wasps that you see, like potter wasps, and grass-carrying wasps, when you see them in tubes, again, they're solitary. They have nothing to protect. So you don't have to be scared of them. You don't have to be nervous around them, you know?
People get more of that, or the stereotype with bees is more from the honeybees.
Yes.
Where everyone's afraid and...
Totally. People hear they work on pollinators and then they immediately start talking about honeybees and you know...
like, it's not what I'm dealing with.
Yeah, when I love the unsung hero, the underdog, the people that go to work every day and just like make it happen, right? And that's the mason bees, the bumblebees, right? Like The bumblebee queens are coming out right now out of their hibernaculums, right? The bumblebees mate in the fall. They sleep by themselves in, like under some leaves called a hibernaculum. And then they come out and they start doing zigzags on the ground. I know you've seen them, Chris, right?
Yes.
And you see them whenever there's a dark little hole or whatever, you see them check it out because they're looking for a new place to live. Bumblebees love to live in old mouse nests because of the fluffiness of the fur, right? And then after they find a place where they want to have their nest for the year, the season, then you see them going to flowers, right? And common eastern bumblebees are the most common common bumblebees found on Long Island. And their populations get up to 250 individuals in a nest. In the literature, they say 450, but they're saying in the wild, it's really just 250. But when you think of like how bumblebees are the chief pollinators of blueberries and tomatoes, right? Like, you know how you can tell whether your tomato was pollinated? You're going to be shocked at this.
I don't think I'm not good with that.
You're going to love this. All right. So, in the 1980s and earlier, for hothouse tomatoes, they used to just use electric toothbrushes to shake the tomato flowers. And now they bring in bumblebees to do the work. You can tell whether a tomato flower is pollinated by looking at that center part, that darker orange part of the flower that hangs down. Look to see if there's 2 bruise marks. Because bumblebees, since they buzz pollinate, right, they take their jaws and have to hold on to the center of the tomato flower or else they'll fly off when they buzz pollinate. So you can see whether that flower is pollinated by seeing if it has those bruise marks. So hothouse tomato growers, they actually go through and they count how many flowers have bruise marks to see what percentage are pollinated and if they have to bring in more bumbles. And that all these creatures are around us. Look, even moths pollinate.
Yes.
Right? Like, so Frank Drummond, who is a wonderful researcher out of University of Maine, boy, he's done so much great work. And he was looking at low bush blueberries, right? The ones that we have native here are high bush blueberries, right? Like blue crop, early blue, all those. But he was looking at low bush blueberries and he caged some at night and some during the day. And he found that the ones that blueberry flowers that were only open at night for pollination still produced blueberries and had a similar amount of seeds in them. So who was pollinating them? Well, moths were, right? Anything that is furry and goes to a flower is a pollinator. And the furrier you are, the more pollen you move, and then the better you are at pollinating each plant. And so the best thing that you can do is actually turning your lights off at night. When you see moths circling around a street light, right? You are distracting them from their work, right? Instead, they want to be visiting flowers to get the nectar and the pollen.
Yeah, so that whole cycle.
Yeah, so Town of Southold Code, Chapter 172 is the lighting code. And by law, since July 2010, any exterior lighting fixture needs to be fully shielded, meaning zero uplight. The light has to be focused downward, completely downward. And the light bulbs can be no more than 3,000 Kelvin, which is a soft white bulb, right? So when you see these folks with really bright lights all around their house and their front porch light is this bright blue color, like, I just don't get it, because your house looks like a hospital room and I'm trying very hard to stay out of the hospital. I want to live life, right? That blue light, it's just so, like, it sears your eyeballs, makes you think of being in a hospital. It's just really, like, unhappy. Guess what also that blue light is doing? It's attracting all of those night pollinators to your front yard. and your front doorstep. And so then when you open your door, it's a super highway for all those bugs to get in. Back in the day, in the 70s, I know I sound really old at this point, but there were bug lights. Bug lights are still the light bulbs that are available. They're orange, they're yellow, right? Because bugs, right, can't see red, orange, or yellow wavelengths as they can see blue, the violet colors, right, but not red, orange, and yellow. So that's why bug lights are always that weird yellow color. And putting that, a bug light bulb, or like I have a smart light bulb and I've now turned it to be an amber color. Mm-hmm. When I'm walking the dog at night, I don't get any bugs on our front porch. It's just easy things like that.
Yeah.
And then I know instead those moths and all these other creatures, they're pollinating my blueberries. They're pollinating my strawberries, right? Like you've heard of moon gardens before, right? Moon gardens are huge because now everybody works so much. So the only time that you can enjoy your garden is at night. So you should have a moon garden, which are just really saucer-like white flowers, right? So they reflect the light of the moon. So white flowers are very attractive to a moth. So that's why they're great at pollinating strawberries and raspberries and all those other flat white flowers.
Yeah. But I was curious, even with the LED lights, is that those, at least from what I see, tend to have more of a bluish tint to them, even compared to the older fluorescent lights. Which
it's so bad, right? So instead, you should get it. Look on the side of the box. It'll say you want to get something that's between 2200 Kelvin and 2700 Kelvin, right? So it's a more amber light. It really will make a difference. And then your house will have more curb appeal, and then your house will be worth more too. So it's like, it's so funny how everything goes hand in hand, right? Yes. Somebody asked me the other day what plants they should plant in their yard for pollinators. And a really great one is summer sweet, right? Also the scientific name is Clethra alnifolia. It has these really beautiful white racemes of flowers. At Soundview Dunes Park, there's a great stand of them. But also common ninebark is great. And common ninebark gets 9 feet tall. And spice bush is another one. Spice bush, deer don't like to eat. I know people say that about some things, and I see you smiling right now. But spice bush, according to Doug Tallamy, who is a wonderful researcher, he said, deer do not eat spice bush. So I always tell people, I'm like, these 3 shrubs that I mentioned, especially common ninebark and spice bush, they can get 9 feet tall. So they're really great to shield out a neighbor, right? Which is a good thing if you want privacy, but also if you have a small piece of land and you're already maximizing all of the flowers and the floral resources, the only thing you could do at that point is build up, right? So we have tons of dandelions are blooming right now, but I also want to have food resources that are going really high as well. So it's great that the common ninebark, which is so drought tolerant, and New York State DEC Saratoga Tree Nursery, every year I get 25 ninebarks from them, bare root, for $25.
Wow.
Is that crazy?
That's crazy.
Like, this is a state resource, right? New York State DEC, state agency. And so the Saratoga Tree Nursery, definitely look them up. They have so many bare root trees and shrubs for really, really good prices. And honestly, people don't want you to know about them, right? Because instead, but like, it's so important for us to plant food for pollinators. Look, most pollinators only fly a few hundred feet. That's it, right? So if you have just one thing blooming in your yard, everything blooms for a week and a half, 2 weeks, right? if you only have one thing blooming in your yard and that's it, then that bee is going to die, right? Because it needs food every day. All of us need food every single day.
Yes.
So honeybees will fly up to 3 miles from their hive, bumblebees half mile, and most native bees, like a mining bee, only a few hundred feet. So it is so important to have multiple crops, multiple flowers blooming at all times. And then that way, it's another way of living sustainably, right? Because then those creatures are pollinating other things that, maybe a bird would eat, or, a squirrel, who knows? So,
yeah.
I'm so sorry. Here, I've taken over this conversation.
No.
And I didn't mean to. It's just I get so into the pollinators.
Yes.
I mean, it's fascinating, right?
Yeah, it's really fascinating.
If we could circle back, just one thing. Honeybees do make sense in one instance. And that's when you have a conventional farm where you have tilled up every inch of your land, you're growing a monoculture, and you're using pesticides, right? So of the 450 different bee species that live in New York State, 70% live in the ground. 30% of them live in hollow plant stems, right? So if you've tilled up every inch of your land and you still need to bring a pollinator in, and you're growing just one type of crop, right? Then you have to bring in honeybees because you need a workforce right away, right? Whereas with our organic farm, we grow multiple berry crops, right? And we have all these different areas that are unkept for the native bees to live, right? So there is an instance where honeybees are important for agriculture, and I totally accept that.
Yeah.
I just don't think that there is a place for them on parkland, open space, or conservation easements, because that land was protected with public funds in order to protect nature and have nature thrive. Right?
Yes. But I wanted to also ask about if you could just describe a typical day, even in your time in May, what a typical day would be like for you on the farm.
Yeah, rock on. It's pretty funny. Well, we weed a lot. Mugwort. It's fascinating that mugwort spreads vegetatively, and it's just fascinating how quickly it spreads. But we weed all the time. But honestly, I see weeding as a way to just think about bigger concepts while I'm doing something so unbelievably boring. I actually jam Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday each week for the store. I send jam through the mail. Our mail order business is quite large. I even sent jam to Alaska the other day, which is pretty wild, because we've won 4 international flavor awards and 2 national good food awards for our jam.
Wow.
So we pick the fruit and then freeze it within a half hour of picking. So then I make jam on demand, right? Like the jam I brought in today. The red raspberry jam, all it is organic red raspberries, of course, from our farm, and cane sugar, non-GMO, right? So you don't want to use beet sugar. Beet sugar has more of a terrestrial taste, whereas cane sugar is more of a floral vibe, right? And so that one, like I said, National Good Food Award, International Flavor Award. Right before it sets, I take 2/3 out and put it through a chinois filter, so it takes out 2/3 of the seeds. So that way you get mouthfeel seeds, but full-on jam, right? And then, since we have a farm, we don't really travel much. And so I came out with Drottning silt. So Drottning silt is huge in Sweden. It's supposedly in everyone's pantries. In the United States, it's known as Queen's Jam. So it's 50% red raspberry, 50% blueberry.
Okay.
Yes, that is our latest release. So we haven't sent it out for competition yet, but I think it'll do very well. So.
Nice.
But so right now, since it's May, weeding every single day. Strawberries are in full bloom right now. which is really huge. And so we hope to start picking, probably looking at our records from last year, we'll start picking May 24th. And then we will be picking some sort of fruit every single day through the beginning of December. And then where our store in Kutchog, which I share that store space with the winery Coffee Pot Cellars. So they're a small winery. It's nice to share a store space. You don't get bored, right? There's always something to do. But where the store is open Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, even during the high season. And then that way, like, it just kind of keeps things tight, right? So jam Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I work at the store Friday and Saturday. We supposedly open at 11, but to be honest, it's usually like 11:10, and people have to help me unload my car because we're picking so much fruit, right?
Yes.
So we don't have any employees. Instead, it's just Adam and me. And then I have a pug named Anna, and you know, she just kind of stares at me. But, you asked me what my typical day looks at right now.
Right now, yeah.
But can I show you something kind of cool?
Sure.
So, I've been thinking about flower flies for the last 10 years. So I wrote my first article about fly pollination in Edible Magazine in 2015. So I've been thinking about how flies pollinate. As bees decline worldwide, flies become more important, right? Which is like so weird. Nobody really thinks about it.
No.
But so this is kind of exciting. Been thinking about flies, like I said, for 10 years. For the last 2 years, I've really been focused on flower flies. They look like a bee. They fly like a bee. They have, you know, the stripes just like a bee. You have seen them and not realized that they were a fly. They are all around us. They pollinate apples, blueberries, strawberries, avocados, eggplant, melons, squash. It's just amazing. And so I can't stop thinking about them. And finally, I think we're just about to release our flower fly nursery.
Wow.
So we were able to get the Aristolid flower flies, a certain family of flower flies, to lay their eggs in our nursery. And then we were able to demonstrate that they stayed on a crop in order to pollinate it. And I realized, actually, that my logo all these years has been a flower fly. This is so weird. So, yeah, you're looking at my logo right now.
Yes.
A lot of people have seen it's like this happy bee, right? But flies have goggle eyes. My logo has goggle eyes. And flies have one wing on each side, whereas bees have two wings. And it has stripes, and it really doesn't have a stinger, right? Flies don't sting, bees sting. And then, so this, my logo, is actually of a male flower fly. So the goggle eyes, since they're connected, that shows that it's a male. If you look at a flower flies, and their eyes are a little bit separated, that's a female. I know. Important information to know how to sex a flower fly.
But you mentioned with bees, or even with mason bees or honeybees, but the female does the pollinating.
Right. So, well,
what about with flower flies?
So males also pollinate.
Oh, okay.
Right? But not as much, right?
Oh, okay.
Because the male is just feeding itself for, in the instance of mason bees. And bees go to the flowers because they need the pollen for their protein. Right? The only reason why a flower produces nectar is actually to attract a pollinator. Once that flower is pollinated, it immediately stops producing nectar, which is so fascinating, right? So with the flower flies, they go to the flowers for the protein and the nectar, right? Because then that helps the flower flies become sexually mature. So this is crazy. So when I think, all right, I only have so many hours on the planet. And if my whole life is about working to figure out new alternative pollinators, right? New bee mimics that we could be working on. Yeah, the mason bees are great. And we've created this whole industry for mason bees on Long Island. And I buy back people's bees with our mason bee buyback program, right? It's now the harvest party for the mason bees is over eight days. It's been so big. So it's kind of fun. You should come to it. It's a class. And that's in the fall, right? And so I buy back people's mason bees, and because then they're a farmer and they're bringing their grist to the mill, as you would say. But the flower flies, the common drone fly, Aristolis tenax, it lives for 3 months.
Wow.
Crazy, right? Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to dedicate my life working on a new pollinator, I need to be working on something that lives for months, right? So I just finished writing the education guide. That's why I've been carrying it around.
Yeah.
So this is going to be part of the flower fly nursery. And then I'm hoping to do, I'm in discussions to do a Kickstarter campaign this fall to demonstrate the breadth of the market. Mm-hmm. And I have a meeting this afternoon to talk about distribution for the flower fly nursery. But I know that the crisis is big because so many people have said to me, Laura, I don't get the yield out of my garden that I used to get. And then, like I said before, going to farm stands and seeing misshapen fruit.
Yes.
All these things, we're seeing it in our everyday lives. Mm-hmm. It's not just in the literature saying that there's a bee decline. And other people are more into technology, and they're like, oh, don't worry about the bees dying. Instead, we'll just use drones, right? Mm-hmm. But I believe in nature.
Yeah.
We are part of nature. We need to keep on interacting with it and celebrating it, right? Flower flies are all around us. We just have to give them more habitat to live in. Mm-hmm. And then they'll stay. Yeah, it boils down to habitat. Mm-hmm. Right? Even humans, we're all looking for a nice place to live and some food. That's it, right? Mm-hmm. And so the flower flies, the bees, they're all the same way. So that's why I came up with the flower fly nursery, and it worked, right? For us to see more flower flies pollinating our crops because of the nursery was just this watershed moment. And so now it's dialing in the flower fly superfood that we're working on, and, we'll see. But I'm a scientist by heart, and so I'm still trying to figure out the business side. Okay. So that's why I'm carrying this education guide around I don't know, my teddy bear from when I was a kid. But it's exciting, right? Yeah. That with science, not everything is known, and we're still figuring it out.
But you don't see other places using flower flies in what you're trying to do?
So around the world, there are people that are looking into flower flies.
Okay.
His name escapes me. There's one gentleman in Australia that is working on flies, a different calliphorids, so different fly species. But he is experimenting with using calliphorids to pollinate the avocados. And so calliphorids are also known as blowflies, but calliphorids gives them a little bit higher of a vibe, doesn't it? But back to flower flies, there are people experimenting in London and Italy with flower flies. So we're not the only ones. But some of the things that we've figured out in the last year, no one else has figured out. Mm-hmm. And finally, I think, you know how you can always do more science? Oh, I just need another replicate, or I need to read something else, But you saw those articles that came out about how honeybee populations are dying, right? You only hear about honeybees because they can count them. Nobody's doing counts on bumblebee populations and cellophane bee populations and mining bee populations, right? But they're all having a difficult time. So as my husband says, I got to get over myself, right? Like the problem is bigger and we just need to move forward, right? So of course, I could have another field season, another 5 field seasons. I could make a sentence sound a little bit jazzier, right? But at this point, we've got to get this product out and we got to move forward with on the ground action. That's why I love living on Long Island, though. There are so many interesting people that want to see nature thrive. And so I really enjoy working at our store because I interact with so many people and then it makes my ideas better. And then like I read these blogs and everything and I'm like, wow, how wonderful that, they tilled up part of their lawn and planted a cover crop of canola, right? Like, because then they could go to the beach more and because they didn't have to mow that anymore, right? And there's so many great nonprofits like North Fork Audubon has been doing a great job with the Red House there. Boy, oh boy. And Rewild is another great organization. It's just being in science and entrepreneurship and all that, like it's lonely. And so that's why I like going to the post office pretty much every day because they say hi to me and then I feel like I'm tethered to the planet. But also knowing that all these other people are working towards the same goal kind of gives me a little bit of like it settles my soul a little bit. And I know there are so many problems out there, right? Like I get it. But when you think of these little creatures that, like, some of them don't even have common names, right? Like, and yet they're making the world better for us. And, they're putting food on the table. And, yeah, it's good. Oh, Chris, this is so much fun. I cracks me up. Oh, yeah. So I have a sticker for you, too. It says flower flies are cool. So since nobody even knows what a flower fly is, I know this is like a real uphill battle. So very important to at least say they're cool.
Yeah. Just getting the word out there and getting people to, I think people just flies in general. They're just like, what's...
Oh, totally. But these look like a bee. Yes. This is so neat. Jen Rubin, who is getting her certificate from the Yale Peabody Museum. Okay. We're doing a collaboration where she is drawing. It takes her 3 months to draw one winged creature, right? So she is going to be drawing some flower flies because she knows that they're the future. And I'm so excited. We just talked last week. And so... she's so jazzed for it. At first, she was just going to do, the usual carpenter bee, mining bee kind of thing. But now she's like, oh, flower flies. Yeah, it's good. I mean, kind of, and they don't sting. Yes. Even the girls, they don't sting. So they're really great. I knew that I was on the right path in December when there was this paper that came out in Journal of Pollination Ecology, JPE. So, this is pretty wild. They found that strawberries that were pollinated by both bumblebees and flower flies, right? The strawberries, not only were they heavier, more well-rounded, so more marketable, but this is the first paper to show this. The strawberries that were pollinated by both bumblebees and flower flies had significantly more vitamin C. Yeah, right? So strawberries are only open for pollination for 4 days. And so the more pollinators are visiting that strawberry, the better that pollination is. And then it created a more nutritious berry. You already knew this without realizing it, because if you taste a strawberry or any kind of fruit from an organic, biodiverse farm, right? The fruit tastes better, hands down, doesn't it? If you taste my strawberry versus Driscoll's strawberry, which is, commercially just grown and mass-produced, picked when it's not ripe, grown in a greenhouse where, they even have robots in there now, and then you try it against mine wins hands down. So when people ask me what my recipes are for my jam, thinking that it's the recipe that made us win all these awards, no, it's the fruit, right? Like the strawberry jam, which we'll have in June, that won National Good Food Awards because the fruit is so delicious, because it was pollinated by all these different pollinators. And now for that paper to come out, like, I was hyperventilating because it underscores, it validates, I guess, all the thinking that all these ecologists have done all these years, right? Like, this paper, it's so good. So,
wow.
Yeah, so exciting. I mean, I even brought it here today because it just made me so happy, right? Like, I know some people don't even have printers anymore, but yeah, I printed out the whole thing and even found my stapler. I'm old school.
Now, I had a question, because you talked about there's been a lot coming out in the last few years about the decline in bees in general, but do you ever see a resurgence happening with bees? And with flower flies, why aren't they also in decline? There's a difference in that regard?
Good question. So some people I talk to, they go, oh, Laura, there's not a bee problem. I have so many bees on my, foxglove or whatever. And then I say to them, you're seeing the bees, but is it because now you are an island amongst nothing? So are you the only food resource for all those creatures? You need to look at a Google map and look, right? Yeah, the New York State came out with a pollinator survey, and the results were shocking of how much is in decline. But the great thing is that there's still something we can do about it, right? By just giving them some lunch, planting a flower. I'll get back to your question about flower flies, but there are some really great books that I think I know you have in the library here too. So The Bees in Your Backyard is really great. It's a guide to North American bees. It's not too geeky. It's actually really great, and the pictures are fabulous. And then Bringing Nature Home by Doug Tallamy. It really puts all of those puzzle pieces together. And it's not in a preachy way, and it's not too sciencey that you're like, oh, it puts you to sleep kind of thing. Instead, it's just perfectly written. So I enjoy both these books so much that I actually have multiple copies, which sounds really, really bad. But yeah, I just love having them in my bookcase. Now, with flower flies, back to your question about decline. They found that flower flies were declining in the UK. And big problems. They figured out the reason why they're in decline is because there's not enough habitat for them. So flower flies, the aristolids that I work with, they like to live in old stumps of tree or in the crag of an old tree. Right? Now that people manicure their yards so much and modern agriculture tills up everything, there's no place for them to live. So that's why the flower fly nursery is replacing that habitat. Flower flies they migrate, but it's called facultative migration. They don't have to migrate, but they will migrate long distances to find food, right? Whereas a monarch butterfly, that's obligative. So the entire species migrates, right? So very different from one another. But the there's this one species, Aristotelis tenax, that they found will actually fly like a few kilometers, right? So they will find the flower fly nursery and then set up shop because there's now a place to reproduce. And, if breeding habitat is limited. So because breeding habitat for them is limited, then they'll go to the flowers that are the closest. And so then they'll pollinate all your crops. Well, that's the key. But in the United States, there are no protected flower flies. And really the work on flower fly populations is still really young. So I love this book, Field Guide to the Flower Flies of Northeastern North America. And so it's by Jeff Skevington and Michelle Locke. It just came out. And it's the first of its kind. So no one's really sure what's happening to the populations.
Okay.
Right? But there aren't as many wildlands as there used to be. So, I mean, you think from when you were a kid to now. Remember driving in your parents' car and there was so much bee schmutz on the windshield that you would go to the gas station to clean the windshield, right?
Yes.
And then while you're there, you might as well get some gas, right? Now you go to the gas station for gas. And if you're there, sometimes you might as well just clean your windshield, but not because you have to. That says it all. Forget all the graphics, all the peer-reviewed journal articles. It says it all when you think of the bee schmutz on your windshield from when you were a kid to now. And, you're not that old, right? So to see these environmental changes in such a short amount of time. But luckily, Long Island is so biodiverse. And we still do have some really good habitat areas that we can expand them.
Okay.
So
Even on the North Fork.
Yeah. I am hopeful, right? But we just have to be cognizant of it. And then to see that these on-the-ground efforts, they make a difference. I mean, I've seen it in our own yard. Yeah. When we first bought our place 10 years ago, it was a green lawn. Like, the guy killed every dandelion, every piece of clover. It was seriously just a green lawn. And then we cover cropped it for a few years, tilled it all up. Our neighbors thought we were crazy. But it was farmland before that. And so we knew the soils were good. And so cover cropped it for a few years. And now you would never know, right? And it's just this buffet for creatures.
And that's something that I think a lot of people could do, even with their front yards or backyards.
Big time.
Save on watering. And...
Yeah. I mean, look, people say, oh, Laura, what's the easiest thing I can do to get more yields out of our garden? The best thing you can do is let dandelion and clover grow in your lawn because bees are smart. These flower flies are smart, right? Just like us, how you only go to the grocery store that has the food you want in it. The bees will go to your yard if they know there's food. So then they'll be at the ready to pollinate your garden.
Yes.
Right? If you just have this garden and you have just a desert around it, not so many creatures are going to go there, right? So, it's pretty exciting. Oh, you know what you have to do this summer?
What?
I think, and you'll have so much fun doing this. All right. You have to plant lemon queen sunflowers.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So lemon queen sunflowers, out of all the sunflower species, lemon queens produce the most nectar and pollen. And bumblebees, right? Sometimes the male bumblebees, are having such a good time getting drunk on nectar and pollen, right? And that they actually fall asleep on the flower overnight. Right? Like on the sunflower. And so, since the males can't sting, in the early morning, you can go up to that male bumblebee, right? Because the female bumblebees, they all go home because they have food apportioning responsibilities to the nest. So, you go up to that male bumblebee who's asleep on that sunflower, and you can put your finger up right next to them, and that bumblebee will high five you, right? So, it's too cold to fly away. and it can't sting. So the only thing that it can do is lift up its center leg and high five you. It's so fun, right? So like you could just like high five bees. So on YouTube, Rich Brown, look up Rich Brown high five bee. He's like the coolest guy on the planet. And he goes, high five bee, high five. And then he like just high fives the bee. So definitely use Lemon Queen, again, because it has the most nectar and pollen. When you get sunflowers from a farm stand, they typically grow Soraya sunflowers. And the reason why they do is because Soraya doesn't have any pollen. So then when you put that bouquet of sunflowers on your dining room table, your tablecloth doesn't get dirty. But the pollen is the protein, right? So you're robbing the bees of all that food. So
yes.
Yeah, I know I'm going to like drive by your place and you're going to be out like high-fiving bees. And you'll be like, what's up? Right? But it's just so fun.
Yes.
And then, you know, again, you're interacting with nature. Just like with the mason bees, they're so fun because you put the bee cottage at eye level. And so you can see them coming in and out. And you see the female mason bees in the morning warming up with the sun. Like, you kind of forget that you're this human in a way because they're just like hanging out with you.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I know we've gone on such tangents and I'm so sorry, but this is fun.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're just hanging out and there's such a, like, you just have to love the North Fork. That everybody is so interconnected. Yeah, I don't know. It's amazing.
Yeah. I don't know if you wanted to touch on the deer population out here and in terms of the deer eating a lot of the low brush and the food being taken away from the pollinators.
Yeah, I co-chaired the deer committee for years, a few years, because they... you know, I thought it was good to be a female on the committee, but to help with the science part too.
Yes.
But I don't have anything like of note to say about it, unfortunately.
Okay. It's just
like I wish
something...
I did. Yeah, people ask me all the time, what can I, the deer populations are so high, what can I plant? And for our farm, everything that we plant has to be pollinated by an insect. So we don't plant anything that's wind pollinated or wasp pollinated like a fig.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's kind of fun to come up with different reasons to do things. But we have a deer fence, so it makes it easier for us. I have heard the deer on the other side of the deer fence breathing at night, which is a little freaky.
Wow.
But deer don't eat ferns, which is kind of interesting. And so you can plant fiddlehead ferns, and then sauteed fiddleheads are pretty yummy in the spring. And spice bush they don't eat, according to Doug Tallamy. But yeah, it's a tough situation out there, right? I do not know what to say.
The answer for that. Yeah.
It's problematic. It really is. They've said that ground nesting birds have declined because there's not as much understory anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm having a hard time figuring that out.
Yeah. But we've talked about what you're doing now and some of the things that people can do, but I like to ask people towards the end what are your hopes for the future of the North Fork and its community down the line, whether it be agriculture or the ecosystem or as the people and the environment as a whole?
What is my hope? Say it again.
What is your hope for the future of the North Fork and its community down the line? It could be in general or it could be more agriculture.
I've lived on the North Fork for about 30 years. And I like looking back, I've just really appreciated it, I guess. Honestly, I hope that the universities and the libraries continue to thrive on Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
It is where I feel most at home. And one of my favorite jobs was actually as a checkout gal at Mastic Shirley Library after grad school. And, you know, as a kid riding my bicycle down to the library during the summers, because it was, you know, a great place to read magazines, and it had air conditioning and
Yes.
really big comfy chairs. But it's just always, universities and libraries have just always felt like a very safe place where you could have good discussions.
Mm-hmm.
So my hope is that the North Fork stays a tight community where nature is a focus. And I think the North Fork has done a good job with protecting open space, although there is still more open space to be protected.
Yes.
Yeah, just change is inevitable, right? But we need to remember that we are part of nature, we are part of a community, and that we can rely on one another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I said, that's why I go to the post office every day, just to say hello to someone, even if I have not talked with somebody all day.
Yes.
It's important to go to these types of institutions, post office, library, universities, where people will acknowledge your existence, right?
No, that's important too.
I know it's very abstract. I'm sure other people have some like really eloquent answers.
I think it's important, even just that staying close, tight-knit, because I think even today we can get isolated in our world and
Yeah.
with communication. And I think within the North Fork community, I would hope we could work together as a whole community and interact and for the better of the North Fork.
I mean, I know, look, even for me, after the pandemic, I was out of practice with having conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very nice seeing somebody at IGA and just saying hi, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so yeah, still going to brick and mortar stores, still walking on the sidewalk. Like I've been trying to leave my phone at home.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But it's hard.
It's hard in today's environment.
Yeah. That's why this has been so much fun today.
Yes.
So thanks.
No. Yeah, I definitely want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast today and share your story and your passion for nature and the pollinators. So it was really wonderful to talk to you today.
Thanks. I think everyone has a passion for pollinators, but they probably just don't talk about it as much.
Yes.
Like, that's all I talk about.
Yes.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Well, I hope you enjoyed episode 128 with Laura Klahre. I want to thank you for listening to the Floyd Memorial Library podcast, and we'll see you next time.